Derivatives trading involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results.
So stressful when the world's on fire. Good God. I can't look at this, guys. Like, my strategy is you buy it and you hope that you got a good spot. Yeah, but we all think you're crazy. You don't fight this. No way. The markets are freaking out and you don't think that anything is wrong? Come back tomorrow and I'll lose it all. Should be fun.
Good morning, everybody. Oh, hold on. We got to turn the volume down there. There we go. All right. Well, it's Thursday. And unfortunately for us, we are still having data problems. So, I forgot that because, according to their systems, at least, the money is coming from a different account. It's coming from the same account, but it had to switch what login is used at the bank to get into it. And so from their system's perspective, it is a new account. And so because of that, there's a 5-day holding period. So assuming that it got in there yesterday, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we might have data on Monday. Now, there may be some things that we can do here to try and get better data, because I did have like some demo data going for a little test that I was doing before the holiday, and I think it might still be active, so we can go and check that. But before we do that, let's go through the markets, and then we can talk about the ICE shooting. I think that we do have to talk about that. So first of all, well, let's zoom out a little bit. There we go, so we can get yesterday's action. So the treasuries, I was saying that based on the what was it, the PMI news that we got and the jobs openings data that we got, that the treasuries would probably buy on that, but I was dead wrong. It looks like the knee-jerk reaction was down. So I'm not quite sure why that was. There must be some piece of data in there that I missed, but I read through all of the analysis and everything of that, and everything did seem to be in line with what I was thinking. In the end, though, they did recover it in the treasuries, and now in the overnight action, just a little bit lower. So right now in the treasuries, I still think that Federal Reserve is likely to cut interest rates 2 times for a total of 50 basis points this year, and that there are the risks are that they have to cut even more because of the labor market. And of course, tomorrow, Friday, we will get the really big data point telling us how the labor market is going. That might be a real gut punch, so prepare yourselves. Okay. Now, on the S&P 500, they started out with a pretty okay rally early in the day, but by the end, they slumped and ended up with a slight loss on the day. and no obvious news driving that or anything. Man, the cough is getting worse. I hope I'm not getting like walking pneumonia or something. Okay. Now, let's pull up silver. We could do gold or silver, but it does appear that silver is down in the overnight. In the overnight action, it didn't do too much yesterday. There are a lot of reports and so forth, though, suggesting that because of the index rebalancing, that silver and gold get hurt in that rebalancing, and that there will be a sell-off in these assets over the next week. I'm a little suspicious. Like, I feel like I'm seeing too much about that. Usually people don't care about that, but it is a flow, and it could hurt things. So, but that might just be over the next week, right? So it could be next week they sell off, and then silver is bullish again. We'll see. That's where they are at. Silver. Crude oil. We can look at crude. Well, there was yesterday while we were live, those headlines about, you know, Venezuela selling oil and all this and that, but, you know, relatively small effect. And in the overnight, we've kind of clawed all of those losses back. So, what else we got? I guess we might want to pull up Bitcoin. Bitcoin still kind of short-term bearish and clawing back, you know, losing some of these gains that they got between the 87 and 97. Well, they didn't got to like what, almost 95. Okay. But a bit of selling here in the cryptocurrency. Okay. So we'll switch over to Xian. And I'm going to switch it back to my camera just because I don't know. I don't think that I'm be showing anything on my screen that you couldn't see, but just to be extra cautious. I'm going to see, but I do think that we might be able to get data through the VPS. I'm not sure if it's still up though. I don't remember how long they had it going for. Oh, well, there you go. It is still there. It is still there. Okay, so I need to change the options here though. The display. Where do I go in here? Use all of my monitors for the remote session. Uncheck that. Okay. So the VPS, it does work. And I have some connections. Let's see. It totally worked. Hey guys, we got data. This whole time we had data. And I didn't realize it. Disk. So let's see if it, well, we'll see what, maybe it doesn't cooperate here. Hold on, I'll pull this over here. So we might need that again. Have a live playback and simulation. Did connect to, oh, you know what? It's probably doing that because we need to be on the most recent. Let's see here. There we go. Okay, so I think I can show you guys the screen. I think I can show you guys the screen. Oh, wait, over here. Yes, there we go. Okay. No, this one. So we're gonna have all that. Okay, so I think in this case a super DOM. Well, let's just start. Now we'll use the default in workspace. But I don't think that having NinjaTrader's super DOM up is really useful. So we'll close that. I don't think we really need this at the moment. So close that. Let's just make this small. So kind of interesting. I get crunchiness when I hear sounds over on the VPS. I might need to just restart my audio engine over here though. We'll do that. Okay, so we got S&P 1 minute chart going on here. Let's make a chart for the treasuries. Xian and your note futures. 1 minute. I don't need 5 days. And let's use as our chart style a box. Change the colors here. That's for down bars. We want orange. Where are you? Orange is always harder to find for me for some reason. There it is. And for up bars, we'll use cornflower blue. Lovely, lovely, lovely. Okay. Oh, and then we also on here don't want the outlines, so we can change the outlines to transparent. Transparent. There we go. That's a little bit better. And you know, I don't have all of my tools and everything on here to like make things into a nice grid, so we're just gonna kind of have to let's do it like this. It's kind of funny when I'm sitting there live watching the data. You know, I don't think about everything that's on there. And I could just completely forget about or neglect certain indicators or things. But then when I'm sitting on a new workspace and I don't have those tools, I'm immediately like, wow, I need to at least have this and this and this. Like, what am I going to do? I can't see the spread. That's going to make it really hard to understand what's going on. But I do think we should be able to get order flow cumulative delta at the very least, right? Order flow cumulative delta type, bid ask, period session, no size filter. Oh, I can change the colors of the candles. Well, then let's do that. Candle body outline transparent, but we will allow the wicks. Okay. And then probably we would, oh, actually it went pretty quickly, so. Isn't there a way in the indicator to change the width? I guess not. I'm not gonna mess with it for now. Okay, so what happened? So my account drew down below a certain threshold. There's still money in there, but it drew down below a certain threshold at which Rhythmic would not provide data anymore. I should have taken care of it in December, but I thought that the thing was it would be better to transfer the money in January so that all of that, I don't even know if it matters for taxes, but just for like all of my accounting purposes, it would be better in the new year. But that was wrong because it takes several days. So we did a transfer, and my things at my bank changed. So like I used to be able to see the business account from my personal account, and they changed that. So in order to see the business account, you had to log in with a separate business account login. And so on Phillips Capital side, I had to delete my existing ACH bank connection and switch it over to that different account. And I'm not sure if it's always the case or if it's just when it was on a new account, but because according to their systems, it's a new account, there's a 5-day holding period for new funds transferred over. So we're not going to be able to use our setup for like 4 more days. So like Monday or Tuesday, we should have it. In the meantime, I realized that before the holiday, I had asked, I talked to NinjaTrader and a VPS provider who I can't even remember the name, but we had a link in the Discord for it. But we were getting data through the VPS provider. So, that is what you're showing right now. So this is, you're looking at the VPS and like a default NinjaTrader installation. But you should still have your workspaces and stuff, no? No, because I think that I could potentially copy the files from my local machine over to this machine. And depending on if I have everything installed correctly, that might work. But it probably would be better for me to just rebuild the workspace over here. Now, one thing that I'm kind of unsure about what we would want to do, because I would still like to be able to see my DOMs and everything. But with Jigsaw, you know, I think that the license only allows me to have it running on one machine. And I have to like disable the license on the one machine and re-enable it on the new machine when I'm doing that. So I would rather not mess with that. So maybe I don't bother installing Jigsaw on this machine and we just watch with charts for, you know, it's only going to be today and tomorrow. I'm just confused as to why. Well, the NinjaTrader settings don't switch between machines, do they? Does the newer version of NinjaTrader like save all of your settings to the account and copy them if you log in on a different machine? No, yeah. So this is sorry. Maybe when I used certain acronyms and stuff, not everybody understand what I'm talking about. This is a virtual private server. So this, I am connected using remote desktop to a machine that is co-located over in a Chicago data center. Is what this is. So this is a machine, like if you wanted to do algorithmic trading and you wanted to have the fastest execution because that really mattered to you, then you would create a VPS like this, a virtual private server, in a data center, and then you could trade from that. Yeah. So I'm thinking about, I don't know, man. For a while there, I was like, I don't know what kind of videos should I make, but right now I have like 4 videos that I kind of really want to get out. And one of them is, what do we do as traders during this hardware shortage? Is the RAM shortage, and there's soon going to be a shortage of video cards. And if you're a trader and you don't have a machine, that's rough. That's rough, right? Well, the good news is that you don't have to have a top-of-the-line machine to day trade anymore. When we started the stream like 7 years ago, that was kind of where it was at, is like you wanted to have a mid-range to higher-end machine when there was like a big splurge of data or whatever to be able to handle it, right? Now, you know, that's not really the case. Like even the low end hardware can totally handle it. So probably option number 1 is that you can just buy an older computer, right? But another option for people I'm starting to realize is the virtual private server. To go and buy a co-located virtual private server, and then you can rent a machine on a month-by-month basis. You can select the resources that you need. That includes video card, by the way. And it's like $50-$60 a month or something like that. And when you compare that to the cost of like buying a completely new machine, especially if you really wanted to buy a top-of-the-line machine, it's a very, very compelling option. This is something that I always kind of dismissed as like, well, why are you gonna bother with that unless you're doing algo trading, right? But I think the calculus has changed a little bit, and in some respects I was just wrong, and it's a really, really viable option for people. So if you're, especially if you're serious about day trading, a virtual private server is like a totally interesting option. And by the way, I only have this running on one screen, but you can totally have the virtual desktop extend across three screens, so you can still use all of your screens and all of that sort of stuff. And some other advantages, even if you already have a nice computer like myself, is you can just have that running on the virtual private server all the time and use your desktop machine for other stuff. And you would still need a desktop machine, but your desktop machine for running remote desktop can be like complete bare bones. Like you can go and buy those mini PCs that are only like $200. So yeah, we're looking at a virtual private server. That's what's going on. So I think that we could like recreate the workspace, but considering that this is basically only for today and possibly Monday, I think that's probably not worth it to me to mess around with it too much. I do want to note, for you guys, if you are interested in using that, the service that I'm using is called tradingvps.io. They were running a Halloween sale, and they gave us an affiliate code for that. But I think that the affiliate code still goes right now. It's just not as much of a discount. So if you're interested in that, you can go and find the link for that in Discord. Yeah. So wouldn't an NAS? So NAS stands for Network Attached Storage. So, that is you're probably thinking about the same thing, but I think that the more proper term would be a virtual private server. Although people might call it different things. In my mind, it's a virtual machine running somewhere in the cloud, essentially. That's the way but that's because they do a lot of cloud stuff. So I have a little bit of oatmeal here to eat. Let's gather our thoughts here for a moment. Actually, one thing that I do need to do here on this VPS, if it'll let me, yes it will, is to change the time zone to Mountain Time so that I don't get confused. There might actually be some reasons, if you're doing a virtual private server, to keep the time zone in Central Time. But because it's gonna, the way that it time stamps everything and all that changes. So like having your machine on an accurate time, highly accurate time, totally matters. But had oatmeal this whole time, it's not cool. Oh, it probably is totally cool. But it's still cut, so. And just realizing that even though I did change the time zone down on the VPS, that it's not changing the time zone of NinjaTrader, so I'd have to go and find, or wait, is that in the data series settings? Trading hours. No, I think that's somewhere in my settings, though. Oh, there you go, time zone. We want to be -3. Wait, what? I thought that we were like +7. Oh, I'm confused. There it is, mountain. There we go. Yeah, it is +7. -7. -7. Okay. You must restart NinjaTrader. Okay, well, let's try it. Yes. It's kind of interesting that the virtual private servers comes with NinjaTrader pre-installed. Because if you try to download NinjaTrader from NinjaTrader's website, I probably shouldn't call it a firewall. What would they call it? They're using oh man, what's the name of that service? Anyways, their network security stuff basically detects that it's coming from a data center and says, oh, nobody legitimate should be coming from a data center, so they won't let you download it. Their NinjaTrader server won't upload it to you. So the virtual private server comes with it. Let's just skip the new 8162. Oh, that's right. I have to sign in. Hold on. Shouldn't have done that. Shouldn't have done that, huh? Don't worry, I have it saved. Ah, man. Actually, I have... Yeah, no, it's there's a technical term for this thing it's kind of like a type of firewall, but basically when you have a web server, you will have something in front of all of the requests that basically determines, is this a legitimate request, and then based on that, where you forward it to. And depending on which cloud service you're using, they have different options and they call them different things. In AWS, it's usually the WAF that's doing that, the web application firewall. Oh man, do I have this set up? How did I do this before? Do you think that liquidity tends to cluster around old/previous value areas, or is it just a coincidence? So, so you're using different terms, right? So first of all, liquidity itself, that is resting limit orders on the exchange. Do they cluster around old/previous value areas? Liquidity clusters around the current price. Okay. And there is the resting liquidity and there's the latent liquidity, because a lot of orders don't show up until like just before they would be executed, right? And that's what we call latent liquidity. Okay. And what we will find is that the price will tend to rest where supply and demand in terms of that latent liquidity is at its minimum. So if you, like, we're moving and then there's a big transaction, and so everybody that wanted to provide liquidity in that location is filled and they don't want to provide liquidity anymore, that tends to kind of halt price, kind of tends to get things stuck there. Okay. Man, I shouldn't have logged out because I will have to type in a huge long string here. And for some reason, the copy and paste isn't working. It gives me that sound. So I'm going to have to type a crazy... Now that one I think is the forum. So I think that we want to use this one. Okay, anyways, now when you have a situation like that where the latent liquidity has been damaged, it takes on average about 45 minutes to recover. So when you get something like that, it will kind of get stuck there for 45 minutes. But after the 45 minutes, it doesn't matter anymore. So this idea that people have that like liquidity clusters around the previous day's value area and we're going to move back to it and all of these sorts of things, absolutely no empirical data to back up any of those assertions. And generally speaking, a couple of other things to keep in mind is that like the most volume tends to occur at the close, especially in equity indexes. So what you're seeing as the point of control in the value area is often actually just where they closed at. So that's another thing. If the volume did matter, like if these things about point of control and value area, if there was like real empirical data to suggest that they mattered and that we could base a strategy off of them, then it would probably be the case that you would want to exclude that closing price and base everything off of the earlier data, you know? So there's just a lot of things like that, right? But one thing that we do know, like what is something that we know that liquidity tends to cluster around is round numbers. So if the number ends in a 0 or a 5, and the more zeros and 5s that they have in the number, excuse me, people are just attracted to those numbers, and as such, we have programmed the robots with those biases, and so you do tend to see more liquidity at those round numbers. And that is absolutely something that you could include into an automated strategy that might help your strategy. Okay, let me try and type this long, crazy password. Okay. I think that was the wrong one. Okay, wait. I'm just gonna double check it. Get it closer over here. Oh, I got it wrong. Yeah, I'm just gonna restart. There we go. It's loading. It's loading. I've been trying to find a way to build a strategy, but I'm having a very hard time right now. So it was indeed a naive approach, right? Yeah, I would consider it a naive approach, yes. Oh, what? It didn't save my layout that I just set up here? Oh, maybe, you know what? I think I clicked the wrong button. Hold on. I think I said there like, oh, it's simulation. But actually, I should have clicked live. Which means now that I have to enter in my crazy password again. Oh no, it says live trading, fund your account, or launch. Why didn't it save my workspace? That's so weird. So weird. Oh well. Let's just make a new workspace. How about that? Okay. Make a new workspace. We will add the market analyzer. And we will add futures here. We'll just use those futures. And then we will have two charts. One will be ZN. Come on. ZN future, near no future, and then we'd have to come in and change all this stuff where only do 3 days. Let's use box. Let's change the colors. Orange, flower blue. Get rid of the outline colors. Okay, good. And we will add on cumulative delta, order flow cumulative delta. With our same colors. Handle body outline. We don't want that. I don't like the outline. Does anybody like the outline colors bit? I don't know. New chart. Yes. One minute candlesticks. We'll also change this. Oops. So I'm really missing all of my indicators and stuff. I suppose tomorrow, maybe I could, I really wanted to check this last night and I just didn't have any time because I was watching kids and stuff. But okay, yeah. So we were talking about this. What is the point about making a bet about the future flow and also managing the risk? Right. I'll go watch. Yeah. Oh no, that's totally, well, so there's, I have an order flow video series. So the point of the proven behaviors is to show like what are the things that we know actually does in the order flow. Another video that's part of that video series is about the inelastic markets hypothesis. And the inelastic markets hypothesis, the gist of it, and I've made like a dozen videos about this subject, okay? The main gist of it is the markets are more statistically efficient than they are informationally efficient. So for you as a retail trader, there's probably more edge out there available in knowing what's going on, okay? So, but you still want to combine the two of them. The problem is most retail traders, they think I'm going to be like purely technical, and then they ignore all of the fundamentals, and they're kind of missing the most valuable stuff for them, So, but the places where I think that there's opportunities for us as retail traders, it is in speculating, essentially. All right. But going back to Lithium Flower's earlier question about like where do I go? Okay, so that's the first thing is that what I'm doing is I'm essentially combining information that I know that can potentially predict future orders and combining that with what we know about the behavior of liquidity and so forth. By the way, now that we've kind of gone and redone everything, looks like while we were fixing that there was a little bit of a jump up in cumulative delta, but then we fell to new lows in the treasury. So that's interesting. Anyways, if you're going on the quant side of it, really what you want to do is, create certain features data series and then prove that there's some sort of correlation with the future orders. Like that you can come in and say, when X conditions are true, does that predict a rise in cumulative delta, essentially? Because price might not always follow along correctly because, there's like a correlated asset or something like that. So what you can do with the order flow is first find things that predict the future order flow, and then combine that together with everything else that you know about the correlated assets and so on and so forth into an algorithm to make decisions. Or if you're going from a larger term perspective, you want to sit down and say, okay, I have a data series, it's like jobs. Does the jobs predict the stock market moving in a certain way? Right? And that's kind of how you want to do the quantitative the thing. So really, you really want to study, how do you do this kind of statistical research? Because almost anything that you read online about a strategy, like if it's a strategy and you're reading about it on Reddit, almost certainly doesn't work. Probably never worked, and if it did work, it doesn't work anymore because it's gotten too popular. You want to find your own strategy, right? Getting that right. It was the 7th, right? So let's talk about the ice shooting incident. I'll let you guys. I'm gonna see if you guys have any like knee-jerk reactions first. 'Cause I got like 2 more bites here. What do you guys think about the ice shooting incident yesterday? Hmm. So, A-Ball says, knee-jerk reaction, sure, who cares? You know, after everything that's happened this week and really over the Christmas break, there is absolutely some very serious headline fatigue out there. A lot of people are just not able to care about this stuff anymore. You only have so many like eye care chemicals in your brain. We can only handle so much. So why do we care? Well, first of all, like what the whole thing here is this is all about being able to process data and entertain all of the possibilities off of that piece of data and analyze it objectively without prejudging it based on how we feel about it, right? So the way that we do that is we're going to put on different hats, right? So the first thing is that we say there was an incident. There was an incident, right? Incident, and there was an incident. I don't need to say or anything like that, but why might we potentially care? Well, there's lots of internet discussion about it. Okay. So what does that mean? That means that there may be possible cultural and political changes from it. Okay. Maybe. There may be. We'll see. Okay. So we got some different hats, right? So the first hat that I got to put on is as an online content creator. Okay. Can we okay. As an online creator. Okay. So as an online creator, my primary objective let's put primary objective is for the safety and well-being of viewers and society. Okay. That's my primary objective here, right? Okay. So okay. So my primary objective here as an online creator is the safety and well-being of you, the people listening, and society at large. And so with that in mind, I have to start out by saying that disrupting other people with a vehicle carries severe risks, including the risk of death to yourself or others. To protect yourself from these risks, do not impede others with a vehicle, follow all instructions from law enforcement, and do not make sudden moves or accelerate suddenly with your vehicle. Okay? I am very concerned that it seems like there are people out there that want something bad to happen. It really bothers me. My primary moral obligation here is for the safety and well-being of viewers and society. You're listening? Hassan Piker, Asmongold, Destiny, right? Our primary responsibility here is for the safety and well-being of our viewers and society at large. Okay, so regardless of what your opinion is on ICE and what you should be doing or things like that, we have an obligation to explain the risks here in these situations because somebody died. Okay. Secondary objective here is to provide factual information. Okay. So what happened? Yeah, what happened to that woman happens all the time to people who try to run over cops in general. There's a real risk. Let's just say that, right? Because I don't want to pre-sully the conversation with assumptions about what she was doing or whether it was right or wrong. Okay. ICE officer shot a woman in a car. We have at least 3 videos. Let's say we have videos from 3 angles right now. The wife of woman shot was outside the vehicle filming. And we also know that the ICE officer was bumped by the vehicle. Okay. That a lot of people said at the beginning because Donald Trump was already out there saying stuff and ICE had already put statement out that an ICE officer was hit by the car, that is technically true. He did kind of get bumped. We could go and watch the videos. That there is some argument about whether, you know, he should really be fearing for his life in that situation. But let's just start with the objective facts that we have. Okay. Now, some things that people will say out there, internet commenters, for instance, they'll say that this was a murder. That is not factual information. Okay, it's we can't say that it was a murder until there is a trial and somebody is convicted. And when you come out and you tell everybody that it's a murder, or you think that it's very important that everybody understand that it was a murder, what you are doing essentially is you are interfering with a investigation of a crime and a trial, right? So it doesn't really help anybody to try and make this pronouncement about what actually happened. Certainly, as a content creator, right, it would be immoral for me to make a conclusion about what actually happened and whether there was a crime or not. You would notice that when they talk about this on the news, they will always say allegedly, right? Because there are moral considerations there, and even possibly legal considerations, because somebody might be able to sue the news by saying, well, you said this thing that was untrue and it affected me negatively. Okay. So that's the first thing. Okay. Hat number 2 is as a trader and predictor of future. Okay. So my objective is to predict the future and possibly make money from it. Okay. So why do we care then? Why do we care? This could... I should just say the thing before I type it out, huh? Why do we care? This could potentially impact future attitudes and behavior, particularly those surrounding immigration enforcement. Okay. So one of the ways that we can kind of look at something like this when it's so politically charged is we can kind of say, well, what is my bias? And what is it that the other side thinks should be happening here? Right? So I'm conservative. The conservatives are generally siding with the ICE officer, saying that the shooting was justified and that the ICE officer will get off, essentially. Get it? He won't be convicted of anything. So what do I think the left believes is going to happen here? Yeah, really, when you start to think about that, it kind of like really opens up a can of worms about like what do people actually want, right? Because I think that the left believes that if people get upset about this issue, that there could be escalating protests around ICE enforcement that may potentially force the government to change their strategy around immigration enforcement. I mean, isn't that really the long and short of it? Yeah. Or to put it in another way, they think that there will be more riots and that those riots will somehow help them politically, right? So that's kind of the crux of the issue, is that it could cause people to hate ICE and be really concerned about the enforcement that's happening and protest more and more and more until the government is forced to change directions on that. You know, ultimately, the left would just want immigration laws to not be enforced at all. That's honestly what they want. I don't even think that they would try and hide that from you, right? Whereas the right would be hoping that this incident kind of causes people to rethink things and not protest as much, essentially, right? So the risk for us as traders is could potentially reverse immigration enforcement, and that has economic consequences. Okay. So I think that I could say that there is a slightly increased chance that immigration laws will not be enforced as strictly. And as such, any kind of bet that I could make would be on the side of less immigration enforcement in the future. Less immigration enforcement in the future. That's the risk, right? There is a risk of less immigration enforcement in the future. Essentially, right? So do we really need to say anything more than that about it? From the perspective of us as traders, I don't know. I think that there's a really strong risk that everybody does just kind of forget about it. But there's been so much discussion. It might be that there's not really any major consequences, but that just people talk about it a lot may be another thing that happens, right? Okay. So far, I didn't hear of any riots last night. I guess we have another day, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. Okay. So the next hat that we can put on here is the lawyer hat. Okay, I'm not a lawyer, but we can. I mean, this is basically what everybody on the internet is talking about. Is they're analyzing the video and trying to determine whether they think that the ICE officer is guilty of murder or not. It's the internet's favorite pastime is to overanalyze events based on really fuzzy footage that's incomplete and lacks context. Right? So from their perspective, first of all, I want to point out there's lots of info we don't have. Okay. A lot of people have been saying that the woman was trying to get through the intersection and was confused by conflicting instructions from the ICE officers and all of that. And then there's been other people on the right that claim that this woman was a protester intentionally trying to disrupt traffic and ICE officers, etc., etc., etc. And I do not know what the truth of that is, or rather, let's say I cannot prove what was the case. Cannot prove at the moment what is the case, but I think that there is some evidence to strongly suggest that the woman was a protester intentionally trying to obstruct officers. Witnesses, their own witnesses say she was there as a lead protester. That might, if that's true, that's probably how we're going to find out, right? Is that we'll find out that she was there to protest, essentially. That what they were doing was they were trying to block ICE. Yeah, she was following them around all day. Yeah. So I've definitely seen that accusation. I don't think that I've seen enough evidence to back that to, like, if I'm on the news to say that that's true. Okay. But we can say that is the accusation. We can say that allegedly she was following them around all day. Okay. So that's a piece of information that we don't have is what was her intention. Was she protesting? We don't know that. For sure. But I bet you by the end of the day we'll know. That's one that we'll probably know pretty quick. The only person that can convince you why, I don't think that's true. Because if she was following them around all day, then that would very clearly show her, why was she there? If she, she was visiting Minnesota. So if the intention of her visit to Minnesota was activism, that would also, I think, pretty clearly prove to us there's the woman that or her wife, the victim's wife, was outside the car filming. So that would also be proof of what their intentions were, right? If she said, hey, you go and disrupt the ICE officers and I'll stand over here and record it, that would pretty much prove what she was trying to do. Let me tell you something, man. It's just there's serious risk of these things. You really can you imagine? Hey, let you all go out here and record it, and then you go and disrupt the ICE officers, and then your partner ends up dying from it. That is not something that you want on your mind the rest of your life. My oh my, no, you would not. So I sure hope it's not the case, but it is kind of looking like it probably is the case. Let's see here. What you got? No. I've seen that video too. Uzi is posting a video of a woman, a witness saying, that she was trying to agitate ICE agents and things like that. And I would not consider that eyewitness testimony positive proof of something like that, because she might not actually know. Witnesses can be unreliable. She may just be assuming that that's what they were doing. I don't think she actually knows. What's up with your DOMs? We are using temporary data until our account is funded again. So it might be like this till Monday. Maybe you'll get lucky, and I'm pretty sure that we'll know by the end of the day what the case is. We're already getting I saw this morning Jack Prosebiak was reporting that there was actually 4 incidents that day of ramming. So this story that they were following ICE around all day and trying to impede their efforts, and that the woman was like was a part of this group trying to do that and was at the front of a caravan that was trying to harass ICE officers. I think it's extremely likely that will be proven verified information by the end of the day. Because, people that are direct eyewitnesses are going to talk. So I think we'll know by the end of the day. But at the moment, I don't think that I can really say that. But so if I can continue though, the information about like why she was there and so forth is information that would come out at trial. That's why I'm bringing it up. That's information that would come out at trial and would be material as to why, an ICE officer would feel threatened. Okay, so here's the key thing. Wow, the S&P just took a real puke there. Oh, I don't know what that's about, but I'm sure we'll find out in a second. Might have just been endogenous. Anyways, from a legal perspective, the legal standard for this in these instances is is the officer's actions in line with what a reasonable person would believe at the time. So essentially he shot a woman. Was it reasonable that he believed that him or other people's lives were in danger and that shooting the driver was the only way to deal with it? Is essentially the legal question here. But you'll get a show trial if Minnesota pursues state charges. Yeah. So I guess I'm getting ahead of myself, aren't I? I would bet that Minnesota will probably charge him. There's going to be serious political pressure because Minnesota is controlled by Democrats and Tim Walz is over there and everything. There's going to be very significant pressure for the state to charge him with something. So that will probably charge him. It will probably go to trial. My bet. There is always a chance that like some of the information that we get here kind of causes prosecutors to go like, there's no way that we could possibly win this and it's not worth it, and they drop it, which has happened a lot recently, actually. Number of like the internet has been kind of like chomping at the bit for something like this, and then it happens and then they decline to prosecute. They side with police, right? And I'll warn you, from the you will get to this hat maybe later. Maybe we won't get to this hat today, but like for the you know, if you're taking this position from as a political activist, I got to warn you that in incidents like this, the tendency amongst Americans is to side with the police. And in fact, George Floyd is probably like the only incident I can think of where they didn't side with the police. And even then, a large portion of the public did side with the police. So, yeah. So the thing here is that to get a conviction, you have to have 12 people unanimously say that the officer could not have reasonably believed that his life was in danger and that he needed to shoot the driver to save it. And they would also have to, for it to be murder, they would have to unanimously agree that the ICE officer's intentions were, I don't like this woman because she's a protester and I want her dead. Okay. So just based on the online discussion, because I mean, and I tell you what, it was really kind of weird to watch the videos come out and everything, because you know there was like the one angle that wasn't really very good. It didn't really show the guy that shot, and then Republicans came along with, oh look, here's an alternate angle that shows that he actually was hit, right? And then I would go over to like the liberal subreddits, like r/law or whatever it is, which you would think would be a subreddit for legal professionals, but it's not. It's just kind of a left-wing activist sub. But you know, them posting the same angle and using it as evidence that the police officer could not possibly reasonably be afraid for his life. All he had to do was step aside and the car couldn't possibly have hit him. Okay. But my own viewing of the video in slow motion kind of says that the woman accelerated very quickly, so much so that the wheels spun a little bit. and the officer was directly in front of the vehicle when that happened, and that is when he pulled the gun and shot. And it wasn't until after he shot that it became clear that the car was turning and wasn't going to run him over. So I think that you would have an extremely difficult time getting 12 people to unanimously agree that that was murder. Maybe you could, the funny thing is that in situations like this, if they downgrade the offense to manslaughter, they might have a better chance of getting a conviction on it. But the political pressure is going to be against that. So, I do think it's maybe it's a kind of a different situation from the Derek Chauvin incident, because that was more about holding somebody down for a long period of time when they were complaining and stuff like that. This is like a split-second decision, right? It's going to be very hard for them to get a conviction. Granted, there's all sorts of political maneuvers that you can kind of pull and influence the trial and so forth. Absolutely happens. You put political pressure on it. I kind of feel like that happened with the Derek Chauvin trial, but even then, I think there's a very low probability that they would get a conviction. I'd say there's probably a 30% chance that they don't charge him. And if they do charge him, there's probably an 80% chance that he is acquitted. Let's see here. Getting out of the car and spending a few hours in jail was an option. She elected the gas pedal of reasonable fear of loss enforcement or defense. Well, I don't think that has anything to do with anything in terms of like a court case. Will the police officer be convicted? So if the woman had survived, she would absolutely be charged with something and would be found guilty. For sure. For sure. And generally speaking, you shouldn't be able to charge the officer for that. Well, how can you say you shouldn't be able to charge the officer for that? That's a little bit. I was going a little bit too far. Like the way that the legal system works is prosecutors look at the evidence and decide what the probability is that they can get a conviction on it, and then based on that information, they choose to go to trial and try and convict them. That's what, and I can't say prosecutors shouldn't be allowed to go forward in that instance. That would be a complete change of the legal system in a way that I don't think would be a positive. They get the discretion to determine if it was a crime or not. In most cases, they don't. You're probably right. Like if this happened in Utah, man, there's going to be protests today in Utah. I hope that nothing happens. Probably he wouldn't get charged. Probably he wouldn't. Certainly wouldn't in Florida. Yeah. Well, and especially, again, I think one of the things here is that you're making the assumption that she was trying to disrupt officers and was part of a protest. So there's two things there. One is, was she protesting? and like intending to disrupt officers. And number two was, was she trying to escape officers because she was afraid at that point she would be arrested? Or was it that she was being told to get out of the intersection? But I kind of think that the accelerating really quickly kind of kills that defense, right? So if that goes the way that I think that the initial evidence suggests, that she was a protester attempting to disrupt law enforcement and escape, from the perspective of the officer, he knew that people were trying to disrupt them that day, and then he heard the acceleration, and in that split second, your life is in danger. And it's absolutely a reasonable person could believe that their life was in danger and that they needed to shoot the driver. 100%. Like with all of that information then verified, that's the way that I think a trial would be most likely to go. There's just, like long and short of it is, there's just no way that you can get 12 people to agree that his intention was murder. Just no way. No way. Like you can't even get people on a Reddit, because I mean Reddit's pretty left leaning. And you go and you read the comments, and there are certainly people that are like, oh, this is murder, and anybody that's saying otherwise must be a robot or something like that. But if you go and you sort it by controversial and you read the conversations and stuff, there's people arguing about this, going several levels deep, hyper analyzing the video and stuff. The chances of you getting 12 jurors to agree that that was murder are very low. So going back to our first hat, the traitor and predictor of the future, I think that there's a very high chance that while this generates a lot of internet discussion, that it ultimately has very small impact on much of anything, right? Now you could go and you could put on the political activist hat. Like if you're a left-wing political activist, then of course your objective is to try and convince people that ICE committed murder, regardless of whether it actually happened, because you believe that it's going to help you politically. But I would be, if I was consulting political activists, I would be recommending against that. Like, we know what they're going to do, but, after the Kent State shooting, they did a poll, and something like 70% of Americans sided with the officers that started shooting. Okay. And this was an incident where it was basically unarmed protesters, completely unarmed, just being straight up shot by police. And Americans overwhelmingly supported the officers. So, it's in history. This has gone different ways. There's the Kent State side of things, and then there's the Russian Revolution side of things, right? The Russian Revolution basically started from palace guards killing protesters or something like that. And then that kind of led to larger protests, and that's how things spiraled out of control. And that's the kind of situation that protesters are hoping to create, is some incident that sparks larger action and causes people to move to their side politically. But the history in the United States is that it doesn't go that way. The history in the United States is that people will give police officers the benefit of the doubt. like overwhelmingly so. To the effect that, like, if we were to look at all, like if we were God and we knew everybody's intentions and what was going on and whether or not a shooting was justified, so that we could objectively mark every incident as whether it was justified or not, there are probably more incidents that were not justified, but that the public, you know, in the end were marked by the city and government as justified, right? Probably. That's just to say, like, how overwhelmingly the public will side with law enforcement, even if in that case they probably should be tried. So basically what I'm saying is I think that the activists on the left are pursuing a foolish strategy. You're basically getting everybody riled up, convincing them to do dangerous things, and all in the end for something that probably hurts their cause more than helps it. And, you know, it would only help their cause if this sparked larger nationwide protests that really spiral out of control and force some sort of change in government policy, you know? And, like, really think about how crazy that is. Like, what do you think is going to happen? What do you think Seth is going to think? Oh, actually, it was murder. I guess we all need to be communists now. I mean, come on. This is not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. What is your percent gain last year? Well, so on the futures trading, we had a small gain, but I only took a handful of trades because I was out of a job. Well, I wasn't. I worked half of the year, but unemployment was uncertain, and so I didn't take very much risk last year. And if you look at, like, my Mad Money portfolios, the individual stocks that I own, I had I don't remember exactly what the percentage is, and I don't think we really have time to look it up. But it was a gain above what the S&P 500 index was. So I did pretty good last year, but I didn't check it at the end of the year, so I don't know what the full year gain was. I think it was like in the 20% range. At one point, it was in the 20% range. So what are you saying here, Uzi? It was a straight stretch of road, not an intersection, so she wasn't lost. So I don't have that context. You might be right. Again, that's something that I think by the end of the day I would be more certain about. And maybe could, because I thought it wasn't I thought it was an intersection. So you're saying it's a straight stretch of road. That makes it even more interesting, right? But like I said, I think that it's probably very likely the case that she was a protester trying to disrupt officers. We've already got some kind of tepid information suggesting that is the case, and it's not enough to meet the standard of where the media would report on it, or where I could say that that's verified information. I don't think that it would be moral for me to say that that's a verified information, but it sure looks like it's going in that direction, and I think that it's pretty likely that by the end of the day we will be able to say whether or not that's verified information. Probably not the thing that people will be focused on, though. Like, if I were to try and guess, like, where does the internet conversation about this go? It will continue to be about, that because she was turning, the ICE officer was not actually at risk of being run over, and whether or not in that situation that it's reasonable for the officer to think that he was going to be run over or not. That's probably what people are going to argue about. And that is what would matter in a trial, was whether it was reasonable for that officer to believe that his life was at risk. I should check my 401ks, because I have some strange allocations often in my 401ks, and I haven't checked them. I kind of, because I've gone through a bit of change in employment, I probably need to now go and consolidate all of those into one place. Yeah, I think you're right, Paul. From headlong positions, you can't see the wheels, and to do gearing ratios between wheels and the steering wheel, it only takes a millisecond practically to turn the wheel, meaning he couldn't see or tell. I think you're probably right. Like one of the things from watching the videos that shocks me is how quickly he pulled the gun and shot. Like, the amount of time from when he decided I need to pull my gun and shoot, that action was a split second. That guy knew what he was doing. And right for the head. So he had shot long before anybody would have realized that, oh, she's turning and is not actually going to hit anybody. It's pretty crazy. And that just kind of goes back to my point that, at trial, in a situation like that, when everything's happening so quickly, is it reasonable to believe that the officer was fear of it? Absolutely is. Absolutely is, in my opinion. And again, I think you'd have a very, very hard time getting a jury of 12 people, because it has to be unanimous, and in Minnesota, it's a jury of 12. I just don't see how you get 12 people to agree that it wasn't reasonable that he thought his life was in danger. I really don't. So much to the point that I kind of wonder if the threads that we see today change. I don't know. I have to see. So I'm kind of thinking today I'm going into work late because I have a doctor's appointment just before noon. My parents were telling me we were going to get snow today. Maybe they meant tomorrow. Look at snow. No, I do have 70% snow on today, but I don't see any snow out there. Yeah. But so we can go over, but I'm kind of thinking, well, I'll have to leave at 10:30-ish. I'll probably stay here and do some work at my desk. And I will call into our meeting. So I'm just kind of thinking about what I should do with the next hour. I tell you what, when I was thinking about talking about this in the shower, I felt like I kind of had the whole progression of the discussion mapped out really clearly, and then when it came time to implementation, I just didn't really stick to it, because I really wanted to kind of the thing that I'm really trying to get at is twofold. One is the metacognition side of it. Thinking about how we are thinking in order to optimize for certain kind of performance, right? If we're a trader, we want to change how we think about it to what is best in line for our trading. Well, one might argue that as a trader, it's best to just ignore this stuff because it could only affect your trading negatively. But I do think, there is this political context and everything that you kind of need to know. So understanding this situation and like where it could potentially go from here is a valuable thing. And, that wouldn't surprise me if you see a betting market pop up as to whether or not the officer will be convicted for murder. Although it's kind of with those things, it always comes down to like, what is the actual bet? So did you guys hear that on Polymarket, the Polymarket, what do I call it? Yeah. Polymarket is saying that the action in Argentina did not constitute an invasion that would trigger a payout on the contract. Can you believe that? They're saying that coming in and kidnapping the leader and basically putting in an interim government and all of the military action that happened does not actually constitute an invasion. So this whole thing about somebody went and put big money on that contract and made like hundreds of thousands of dollars and all this sort of a thing. They're saying, nah, actually that guy doesn't get paid out. Can you believe that? This is exactly what killed Predictit. Predictit was kind of like a more sanctioned prediction market. And then there was a couple of instances like that where they didn't pay out in instances where they really should have, frankly. And people didn't trust it anymore. In fact, I think for me, if I was going to get involved in a prediction market, I think I would only do it on Kalshi, because that's the only one, to my knowledge, that is like federally regulated. That if the prediction market is not adjudicated in the way that I think that it should, I can sue and feel that it will actually be handled fairly, Anyways, there's lots of things that I can do here. It's not going to happen this week. I do want to make some videos, but I'm not going to be able to record them this week because there's a funeral. I don't know if I told you guys about that, but a friend of mine, friends of mine, committed suicide, and so they're having a funeral for that this weekend. Really, we don't know what happened, but it was a bizarre thing. So I'm probably not going to record anything on Saturday because I'll be going to the funeral for that. But I'm also kind of thinking about like, what do I? So it's one of the things that I've got going on right now is it does take me an hour both ways. So 2 hours. I spend 2 hours in the car, and right now I mostly just listen to electronic dance music podcasts. So I like that. I feel like that I am something about listening to the music does something for me. And if I'm not doing it, I'm not myself. So that's good. But I don't think that I necessarily need to be listening to podcast for like 2 hours a day, because that's basically like 10 EDM podcasts a week that I can listen to. I don't have that many. I listen to Above and Beyond. I listen to well, I've been doing Alice in Wonderland a lot lately. I really like that for kind of more of the broken beats kind of stuff. Noisia is good stuff. They have such a good podcast. Well, it's called Vision Radio now, I think it is. And then I'll do Oliver Heldens. He's really good because he's kind of techno and house. Anyways. And then sometimes I'll do Future Sound of Egypt. I guess maybe I could get to 10 if I added a couple more in there. But I really think that like those 5, that's good. So like maybe I should be doing like Audible, whatever, reading a book, having the book read to me. And one of the things is that for reading, I often feel like that to read that I really have to sit down and focus on it, if not take medication. And it depends on the kind of book. Like the kinds of books that I've been the most interested in, like Trades and Quotes and Prices, you really do have to focus, and you might be doing practice and things like that. But are there some books that it would make sense for me to just listen to in the car? Probably. But which ones are those, and like what's that on my list? So I could sort that out. And then there's also, well, can I mess around with my interface here and everything? I tell you what, let's keep streaming until 9 o'clock. Actually, no, it's further because I don't have the meeting until 9:45. And I'll pull my laptop out and start looking at things. I can connect it to the... I never use that. That's a good thing to do. Yeah, I think I have enough work that and I don't know if you guys really... it's kind of interesting, really going back to the shooting. I felt that everything that I saw on the internet yesterday was really interesting to think about in light of the conversation that we had yesterday morning during yesterday's stream. Wasn't it? Really was kind of like, what is our objective and how are we thinking to be in line with our objectives? And, are we able to analyze the information without prejudging it and sullying that information with our personal feelings about it, whether or not we like ICE or not, whether we think that officer committed murder, right? And then it comes to like the ultimate question of like, well, did he commit murder? And like, can you prove that? And we've got people on both sides that are utterly convinced, and I don't think that any of it is really objective. Which is maybe part of why even though I know that pretty much all of you guys are going to side with the officer, those of you that listen to it. This is going back to this liberal thing, like, I've only really ever had like 2 or 3 guys that came on that were like really super liberal. So I don't know if that means we scare the liberals off or what, but I just know that you're all going to take the conservative side of it, right? But you're not that into it. You're not that into it. We have definitely, we're all a part of that. This stuff keeps happening. Nothing really comes of it. Kind of tired of it. And I really wish that people would just, not try and disrupt officers and be safe. Maybe I should have just said, going back to the very beginning here, Disrupting others with a vehicle carries severe risks, including risk of death to yourself or others. Maybe that's just the only thing that I should say about it. Because it really bothers me that when you go to, like, the top streamers, like, you know, Hassan and Destiny and Asmongold's, that's not what they're talking about primarily. Asmongold was almost gleeful that somebody got shot over it, which kind of rubs me the wrong way. They're not talking, and I think that that's like really the most important thing, and the rest of it is maybe the rest of this is a situation that doesn't matter that much, and so maybe the rest of this is just entertainment, which is kind of messed up, right? Kind of messed up if that's all entertainment and we're all spending that much time on it, but jeez. So that's interesting. But anyways, I think it'll be more interesting to talk about tomorrow. Well, maybe less interesting to talk about tomorrow because there will be less question marks, right? But yeah, I'm gonna get going, so I will talk to you guys tomorrow. I'll spend a little bit of time. I'll download my indicators so we can at least see spreads and kind of get all of our market analyzer all cleaned up and everything, so that when we're watching non-farms, we really got a good idea of where everything is going, even if I won't have the DOM up and able to really get a good read on the treasuries. But I'll try and spend some time on that. So see you guys tomorrow. In the meantime, stay excellent, team.